okay. Your event is starting. It'd be really nice if it did. And then what you do is I go to that view on watch page. Once I get to there, it should...
If you scroll down, what's it doing? See the screen below you there?
Yeah, it should say preview.
So hit play on that. You got your routine.
Well, no, that's the bit I've been getting that bit. I've just thrown a Hail Mary and changed some settings. I'll go public view now, if that's the same, and I've got the red dot now. I'm a bit concerned about the lighting. I'm not sure how I'm going to fix the lighting. As in the lighting in behind the lectern thing.
So you stand the lights up in here for now.
Yeah, it was a lot better than that before.
When they were down?
I think so. Shitballs, who are all these people? Simon, could you go and play with the dimmer switch over there for me? Just go and get really, just start doing whatever. Now there's a 40-second delay. I turned that over there for ages, so I'm going to go back to about there. Yeah, ramp it back up again for me. Yep. Now I'm going to go view on watch page. Now that link up there is the one that we need to get to everyone.
Do you want me to try and pop my computer in now?
Yep.
At least you'll see, like,
Yes.
you can even see
Yes.
what...
Yep. And if you could, yeah, and we'll see if that'll work then. Yeah. I need some more light.
They still at the back of the room, put it front, make a difference.
Oh, that's going to make it hard. So, oh, no, I'll move that screen back just for a second. Unless we can plug me in to...
computer in too, but it's not going to give you...
Someone said they had a HDMI cable. I could do with that one. Actually, pull me out a bit, and I'll just set it and forget it. I'm about over this, so pull me out, plug me in. I mean, pull you out, plug me in. I'll get the link, I'll put it up on Facebook, and whatever happens, happens. Where's my man? Oh, man. Who could we get to test it? Who's tested on his phone? It'd be better to have someone on their laptop, shirt, it's not a laptop shirt or something there. So now I'm going to go to, and the fact that this is, that should be fine for about that.
The resolution on the screen's not going to be so off this screen.
I wish they had have actually said they only run that, because my screen at home is 10 times that thing.
Mark was going to bring another. Mark was going to bring another screen. Mark Nikolai.
Bang. Now what I'm going to... Why is that posting? Well, that's the best I can do. So that's what they'll be seeing at the minute.
Alright, and that's all plugged in under here, isn't it? So as long as we don't plug anything under
As long as we
there.
don't bump anything there, we're good to go. So they should be getting sound off this thing, and they'll be hearing me gobbing off now.
Bass for about 4 times.
I don't think you have you? I haven't heard it. Good. I haven't heard it, Adrian Morrisby.
Alright, so I can basically plug in.
You go for your life.
Camo's checking it now.
Cool. Everyone Camo's not there here.
Got an interview tonight or something, right?
Gotcha. So I'm just doing ad lib. You've got it under control over there?
Yeah, I guess so.
Just keep throwing me the microphone when you need to.
Oh, how many mics you got?
Under one. That's cock.
Do you need it?
Hopefully not. That was my plan B. Moz and I won't.
We might try and avoid the microphone, I guess. So Al might sort of add off each other a little bit.
Yeah, same here with me and Moz.
Probably keep it quiet then, that'll be good.
I'll use the microphone just to keep it quiet. All the mics tucker. I know it's hard, but we were just trying it, the bumpy thing.
How are you, Dr. Shaw? It's at the uni, isn't it? That's at the university.
I've got a
Tasmanian University.
I've got a PowerPoint on a stick too. I don't know if it'll be any use. Won't go into Mac. Oh, will it? Yeah, we'll change. Yeah, Brendan, I'm good, mate. I was going to tell a lot of them to stop using lights for catching blue line shift too. In the season between March and July anyway, because I reckon it's just many bloody blue line. With a bit out of it, I've used it for a week. Now it makes it really hard to go around. Well, you've always busted up my swords. All you do is probably lose all your gear, spend 2 hours on collections, and even if you land it, it's lightly catch on the collection. And if you don't, it'll probably die. So you should take the fast.
Yeah, I think just dropping bits and pick up some. I thought we were looking at on science and showing so far. Basically, exactly. It's just about day and night thing, timing, in terms of when you're off school, it's the finished and stuff. So basically, the science is really
I think one of the interesting things in the science of the New Zealand stuff is that you read the web and it'll tell you they go to 600 metres during the day. The New Zealand stuff shows you going down to 850. I think one of the interesting things too is they may be coming in and out of the morning. They go up there. One of the boys had an alcohol smashed up by one in the middle of the day, bright sunshine on the surface and on Chimicon. So they're not shy. They'll have a crack. He's sitting in the surface scatter layer and he sees some action up top. He's shot up through the feet, I reckon.
We've got a fair few spare seats up the front here. We're going to have a separate 2 different sessions, so you won't be stuck in the same seat. We're going to have an interlude in the middle. So plenty of seats up the front. Please come in and take a seat, and we'll kick off in 10 minutes' time.
the front, guys, so anyone's looking for a seat, make your way to the front. That's probably where the giveaway is getting thrown. Heaps of seats down here on my left. Still plenty of seats down the front here if you'd like to make your way down. Adrian would just like me to test the volume, so in testing the volume I will get out a hat and someone to give it away to. I'm rambling on ambling. Oh, there's a gentleman there, wants a hat? Pass forward.
Just a warning, don't wear your hat in the bar unless you want to shout the bar. It is at RSL Club. Check, check, check. Check, 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 check.
Righto, ladies and gentlemen, 5 minutes away from starting, so if you'd still like to make your way to the front, plenty of seats down here.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're about ready to kick off. Still a couple of seats at the front if anyone would like to move forward. Otherwise, standing up is just fine. Check. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Tasmanian Anglers Broadbill Initiative Info Evening. First of all, you guys happy for me to yell? You probably have to keep it a bit quiet, but it's always a bit hard, especially later on in the evening, but we'll give it a crack anyway. Okay, first of all, welcome to the Tasmanian Broadbill Initiative Info Evening, the first of its type, I believe, in Australia, because basically it's new to us, thanks to the likes of Leo Miller and some others. First of all, I'm Hooch and this is Moz. Oh, sorry, I'm Kelly and this is I'm Moz, that's Hooch. We're from Team Penn and we just generally got hooked up with this and a chance to help promote it and gather you guys here, which we have tonight, guys and girls, of course. We're going to run you through the night, keep it flowing. As of anything I'd ask is because the mic's not working, please try and keep the chat down. If you need to go for a chat, just head outside of the bar there and have a yarn. Of course, we've got the toilets just around the corner here at the other side of the bar. I'd ask you to please turn your phones on to silent if you could for us, just so we don't get interrupted too much. Okay, today we've got tonight we've got a fairly cool panel of speakers. Got a little bit of intro music for this one. Chris Conroy, well debates, First of all, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mark Nicolai from Tarfish, a keen all-round fisherman who has yet to master the art of catching the fish. He's also the CEO of Tarfish Tasmania, and you'll learn a bit more about Tarfish later on in the evening. Also, we have Mr. Brett Cleary, the President of the Game Fishing Association of Australia, and happens to be Tasmanian too, which is spot on, and welcome to his wife Jackie as well. We have Dr. Sean Tracy from IMAS, the Department of Fisheries and Division of University of Tasmania. You'll learn a fair bit about it.
They're going to make me point at them.
Sorry.
For those who don't know, Brett Cleary on the end, President of GFWA, and
also the CEO. I thought you can leave me for a minute, that beard. Also, we have the one and the only, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Alistair McGlasher. Absolute privilege to have him out down here this week, or tonight, famous for his show Big Fish, Small Boats. If you haven't seen that, then you need to get onto that. That's a top show. Also a journalist and avid fisherman and promoter of tag and release throughout Australian fishery, and looked at from all around the world with his efforts he's made, not just catching fish, but showing the world how it's done and how to look after your catch. Also, we have the one and only, Leo Miller, ladies and gentlemen, from Team Tuna Chaser. Okay, first of all, thanks to the Tabby committee, I guess, have been put together, thanks to Brett, and a big thanks to Steve Bax for all his hard work as well, and for donating some of the prizes we've got for our wonderful raffle, which we'll touch on a little bit later on. First of all, the first of our speakers will be Mark Nicolai from Tarfish to talk about what they do and how to get involved with tarfish and its benefits as fishermen. Mark Nicolai, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, I've been ill the last couple of days, so I've thrown the voice right down the back. Put your hand up if you can't hear me. Tarfish is the recognised peak body in Tasmania for recreational marine fishers. We've got nearly 3,000 members in our own right. I get stopped by a lot of people and I talk to a lot of people in the street. The most common question, as Moz said, is what do you do? A lot of the stuff that Tarfish actually does and gets involved in is done out of the mainstream media. A lot of people don't hear about what we do. It's a full-time job for me. I've been doing it since 2008, so nearly 6 years, a bit over 6 years. A lot of what we do is, an average week for me would be sitting in meetings with bureaucrats at both the state and federal level for anything 2 to 3 days a week, every week, talking about recreational fishing, what we do, and the continual issues that we need to manage and contend with as recreational fishers and people who have the ability to have input into the management of those resources. So you won't hear a lot about what Tarfish does. One of the things, the benefits that I get in my role when I talk to people is just basically saying to people, and most people I talk to are comfortable with the fact that they just want somebody in their corner looking after their interests. And that's the catch cry for Tarfish. Its fundamental reason for existence is to look after the interests of recreational fishers. And in doing that, that involves our ability and our capability to ensure that we've got input into absolutely anything that can have an impact or an effect on our pursuit in recreational fishing. So, you know, we get involved in marine research, and part of the reason that we've partnered with GFAA in getting this, it's really important that everybody understands that Tarfish is in there in all of the processes, looking after your interest, and we go out of our way to ensure that we've got that communication coming back through the process that we've got set up. And I've actually left some information down in the bottom left-hand corner around more detail around what Tarfish actually does. We've got a strategic plan in place for 5 years, which we follow, and that guides a lot of the activities that we actually do. So if you want some more information down on the bottom left-hand side, there's also some membership applications down there, and I'll be around all night, so if anybody wants any more information or wants to talk about the potential benefits of joining Tarfish, please just grab me in. I'm more than happy to have a chat to anybody. Thanks very much.
Just to put that into context, when we sat down and initially put this, I suppose, gathering together, we both looked at each other, Moz and I, and said, well, are we members of Tarfish? And we weren't. We just thought, well, that's ridiculous, because as fishermen, everyone should be a member, because one, it doesn't cost anything, and all those benefits that Mark's just alliterated there is fantastic. It's just, in this modern times, other people that may not be as friendly to fishing, they're all very well.
Please welcome Brett Cleary to the
Thanks, boss. Hopefully everyone up the back can hear me. I think a lot of people here are already members of game fishing clubs, a game fishing club in Tasmania, and my role as president of GFAA is really an administrative role, and our main focus is maintaining our fishing right and looking after the species that we like to catch. And I just highlight that because the reason we're here today is about broadbill swordfish, and I haven't caught one. I'm really excited about going out and catching one. One of the highlights of my fishing career so far was actually catching a striped marlin 200 metres off Tasman Island. And I remember seeing the excitement on the crew when we caught that, and I can just imagine what it's going to be like if we can start to encounter broadbill swordfish on a regular basis. So how we got here tonight is really because of Leo. Leo started ringing me when we first started to look for broadbill swordfish. We were talking about line and using braid and all sorts of different things. So we had a bit of a discussion, and that got me thinking about broadbill swordfish. And from an administration point of view, and one of the things that I started to talk to, or the people I started talking to, was the Australian Fisheries Management Authority, AFMA, FRDC, who are the funding body in Canberra, Breakfish Research, spoke to Tarfish, and there was obviously a lack of information from a recreational point of view. So one of the things that's most important is to get that information, especially in this early stage of a developing fishery. So when Sean was fortunate enough to put a satellite tag in one of the broadbill swordfish, it just really set everything in motion. And one of the things that's really important about this is getting community involvement and commitment to projects like this, hence the reason we're having a meeting tonight, because we want you to be involved in protecting this species and making sure that it's there for future generations. And I think we have a really good opportunity with this particular fishery. To that extent, when we started thinking about broadbill swordfish and the opportunities there, you start to look around the rest of the world. There's opportunities to catch them in New Zealand and Mexico, off the coast of Florida and the United States. People pay big money to go and catch these fish. So I started to think to myself about the tourism opportunities for Tasmania. So next port of call was the Premier. He's the Minister for Tourism in Tasmania, as well as the Premier. And so we sent him a letter and went along to see him and started to talk to him about the opportunities that we saw for Tasmania. Because one of the things that we keep going back to is making sure that we can get the research done prior to this fishery really taking off so we understand it. So again, that's the reason we're here. So I got a really good response from Will Hodgman and Jeremy Rockcliffe, who's the Minister here for Fisheries in Tasmania. And we've put all those funding sources out there, we've written to them, and we're trying to get some sort of commitment from them very quickly. But we can't totally rely on that. And so what we're going to do is run a raffle and try and get some community support. So hence the reason we're here tonight. I hope you enjoyed the night. There's some really great information from the speakers. Hopefully we'll all find out how to catch a broadbill swordfish and we can get out there and do it. So look, enjoy the night. I'll have a couple of other things to say a little bit later on about management. But that's really all from me just at the moment.
All right, thanks. Thank you, Brett. Top stuff indeed. And this is the brainchild of Brett Cleary. And I was going to talk about it a bit later on, but I sort of feel myself and go the same sort of way. We don't know of a fishery basically in the world that hasn't been outfished before. Everyone's gone, oh shit, how do we find out how this works and whether they're resident stock or migratory or whatever else. So what Brett's basically done along with the helpers here is make this happen and take the initiative. Okay, so next up, ladies and gentlemen, we have Dr. Sean Tracy here to give us an update on bluefin tagging research, and he'll bring out Ashley for a bit of a chat as well on what Sean's been up to. Thank you.
Thanks, Moz. So I just thought we'd start by giving a bit of a background to the bluefin project. Obviously it's a swordfish night. But this, obviously it's a good opportunity to show you where we're at with this. This is the post-release survival study where we're using satellite tags. And it's also got a lot of overlap with what we're planning for the swordfish as well. This project came about basically for the same reasons Brett said before. A few years ago, there was a recognition by government, researchers and stakeholder groups that there's very little money about the research. So, you know, even fundamental things like how many have been caught, how much effort goes into it, if it's becoming more popular or not. For those particular questions, there's a federal funded project going on ways to work out how much is being caught and what kind of effort there is. It's a very challenging question. As you know, the wreck fishery is all across southeast Australia because there is work in that area. Another question obviously is what's this fishery worth to regional areas? There's been some work done in Portland on this, and I think, I can't remember the numbers, but it was a significant return to that community. So, you know, and there is some work planned in that area as far as I'm aware as well. So, this project is looking more specifically at how we as wreck fishers handle the fish. If we choose to release a fish after catching it, what does it do? Does it sink to the bottom? Does it survive? Does it swim off? So we've tried to address some of those questions. Again, this project's had a lot of support from the wreck fishing community, and I think that's reflected in the way that it's been funded by a whole range of different agencies. The Australian Government through the Fisheries Research and Development Corporation, the Fishwise Community Grant Scheme here in Tassie, which is licence money going back into research. New South Wales Recreational Fishing Trust, again, wreck fishing licence money, and the Victorian Wreck Fishing Trust, and there's been a lot of really good support letters from all around Southeast Australia from recreational fishing communities, clubs, etc., and the IGFA is also very supportive of this project. So, as I said, basically the primary objective of this study was to look at, do the fish survive once they're released from wreck fishing? So basically, what is the post-release survival rate of SBT, and are there factors related to that that we can start to address and handle the fish better to see whether that's actually going to affect the survival of the wreck fishing trust? Now, this is an important question. Some fishers now are targeting SBT purely for catch and release. Definitely seeing that's becoming more popular in some states than others. And others will continue to catch and release fish once they've reached their bag limit. And as we see the stock start to recover, I think most people in here are aware that it's been fairly overfished, but there are some good signs now, and this fish probably will become more available to us over the coming years, and most likely we'll probably see higher release rates. We did a survey at IMAS it's a 12-month survey from October 2011 to September 2012, where we were assessing what was being taken across a whole range of offshore fisheries. Bluefin, mako shark, striped trumpeter, several other species. And basically we were found in Tassie the release rate's up about 25%. If you want a copy of these, so this is a short copy of it. It's got all the information on what's caught in Tassie in that particular year, and there's also a nice thick report if you really want a good bedtime story. Both of those are available on the Tarfish website, and I've got a couple of hard copies here as well. So through the support of everyone, basically in terms of the funding and so on, we've been able to build this into one of the largest post-release survival studies in the world using satellite tags, which has been a pretty amazing opportunity. The whole thing wouldn't have been possible without the engagement of the recreational fishing community and the charter industry as well. They're integral, basically, to delivering this. And that's across New South Wales and Victoria and Tassie, where we've done the work. That goes from people calling us in to tag a jumbo. So we've had a couple of guys that have got on the radio and said, we've got a jumbo on the line, do you want to tag it? We've gone and jumped on their boat, tagged it, swum off. We've had other guys hand over rods. We can catch fish ourselves as well, it's always good to get a bit of help. And even right down just to the radio chat, the online forums, Facebook, I think this has been a really good community of helping each other out. You blokes help each other out as well, and we've been able to tap into that, and it's been really useful to know where the fish are, when they're on, and that's the whole of South East Australia. It's been a great experience. I've had the opportunity to work with some of the best recreational large game fishermen in the country. Without giving away too many secrets, everyone's got their own theories about what works and what doesn't, from big hooks to small hooks to light leaders to heavy leaders. I think the common thread, most of you blokes have probably experienced it, make sure your gear's up to scratch and you're using components suitable for the gear. You don't want to put a cheap screw along and have a break when you've got the fish of a lifetime, or you chafed your line or whatever. So that's probably the key component. Now, through this, I've had the opportunity to work with Al Glashan as well, which has been an amazing opportunity because he's been a really big advocate for promoting this kind of work, and he's also, basically when I've been in New South Wales, all my fishing has been off his boat, so I've really appreciated that he's put the time and put his boat up to get this done. Was introduced Al, I don't think he needs too much, obviously he's been fishing since he was in nappies and writing since not long after about fishing. His photography, fishing and photography is renowned all around the world, particularly his underwater stuff. And he's got several national TV shows on fishing. His latest, Big Fish, Small Boats, is into its third season. So I think we'll get Al up here.
Yeah, get Al up here. Yeah.
And just in case you're wondering about how much his job sucks, he put this little movie together for us.
Before anyone says it is tough, all right? It's a tough job to have to go fishing all the time. I don't get much response to that. I never seem to get any sympathy at that end of
right
things.
here in our own backyard. We're going to go the rollers adults in the west. We're going to catch big bluefin in the east. We're going to take the plunge and give you a Blue Planet style of fish. Cameras battle the seas, massive storms, show you some of the most amazing footage you've ever seen. A massive shark comes up, smash the side of it, knock the end out of the old action cap. I'll tell you what, Tony's going to be cracking it. That's the second one we've lost now. There is no doubt in the world that I have the best job in the world. But I'll tell you what, sometimes frustration builds up a little bit. That's a big fish. Talk about chaos. Get a ripper.
Always handle your fish with care.
That's a beautiful fish. Look at it. Oh. Okay, maybe I'll put too much pressure on that one. How good is that? Well, that wasn't good, I can tell you that bit.
I'd have to say, that'd have to be up there in one of the best jobs in the world.
It is. Look, it's funny, for as a kid I always had the idea, but I've never worked a day in my life, and ever since I was a kid all I wanted to do was go fishing and hunting. And along the way I started taking photos, because years ago at Bermagiri down the boat ramp there, stand there and we caught a marlin, let it go. This guy comes down and goes, oh, how'd you go? Oh, I caught a marlin. He goes, yeah, where is it? Let it go. And he goes, no, he didn't. Walked off. Listen, you bastard, come back here. So I went and got a camera and started taking photos. That's how I started the whole thing of doing all the photography, to prove I was actually catching fish. And then I started doing more, then putting it in magazines, then going international with the stuff overseas and building and building. And the funny thing is now, I actually prefer taking the photos than actually catching the fish a lot of the time. The one thing, like with the sortie, is I want to jump in during daylight, thanks to Leo showing it here, and catch one during the day, but take photos underwater, and if I don't get bashed in the head by the thing, you get some photos of it swimming around. But I suppose that leads us to this point, and that's with Sean and I getting along at times, but when it actually comes down to it, it's chaos, because you think, oh, just jab a tag in it, should be right. No. Sean wants it perfectly in the boat like that. Lifting it in the boat's half the problem. It's, you know, you put on a gaff and lift it up. You can't stick a gaff through the back of the head, Sean told me. So you suddenly have to lift it in gently, do it all, then do it load, do all the stuff for it, and then drop it back over the side. But the thing we found amazing, because I started jumping in, so I'll film these fish as they swim off, and all these tuna like this just go straight down. And I'm going, this is not good. And it turned out it was totally different. Thermoregulating, it looks like it, you know. So they're actually going down to cool down. You all know if you've caught the fish, that you go and cut them up, how hot they are inside. It's sort of, for me, it's opening up a whole new world and a better understanding. And the future is, particularly with bluefin, it's compared to the swordfish, like it's a great case study to look at. The swordfish aren't in too much trouble at our end. The bluefin obviously got hammered. We weren't part of that. But now we're looking at a recovery mode. Whilst with the sorties, it's the total opposite. Before the fishery starts, we can actually look at putting some measures in, being involved in the research and actually understand the fishery. And traditionally, fisheries have always been the wrong way around. You find your fishery, fish it really badly, I suppose, fish it right down, then go, oh, we better look after it. You guys have got this awesome potential fishery down here that, you know, tourism-wise, is going to be massive because you get the bigger fish. So, yeah, it's pretty exciting stuff.
I just want to say before we go into, I also mentioned that it's all fairly chaotic on the boat. It's not simply just whacking a tag and let it swing off. We're trying to get all this done, do it all on board so we can handle the fish better. We're trying to keep that as short as possible. We're recording a whole heap of things, the fight time, taking photos of the fish, blood samples, looking at the hook location, has it been chased by a predator, killed by a predator, or bitten by a predator, the duration of that predator interaction, any other damage, the length of the fish with the satellite tag or spaghetti tag, which is just the conventional gamefish tags, the release conditions, the time that it takes to process the fish, and also the recovery time, so when we basically put it back in the water, how long until it kicks off. So there's a lot going on, and that all happens in a minute or two, and on a small boat where you've got people running around, that's all fairly chaotic.
And then you throw in a camera crew as well that want to get all the shots. So Sean's sitting there trying to do it all gently, and they're like, can you redo that? And you just look, I won't say the exact words he said, but I'm sure IMAS were appreciative of them. But we've got, and the other thing probably worth mentioning there is Phil Bolton, who does the normal tagging program, which is just, you know, spaghetti tags. He's putting his time in, up in New South Wales, on his own to do it. He's not allowed to come fishing and actually catch a fish and get paid for it. So he has to come out and, well, we make him write all the notes instead. So, but yeah, it shows the commitment that's across the board. You see this is this year, like, I mean, what I find amazing about, particularly with the bluefin, is as a kid we used to fish out of Portland. Now my old man caught them in Port Phillip Bay when he was young. Obviously that all disappeared. And as a kid down at Portland in Victoria, we never saw them. And now they're all coming back, they're all up the East Coast, like they're catching them now in 3 different states. So it's changing everything around. Probably one thing worth mentioning with this is a fish that's put in, you can see it's all blurred with all the blood and all that. It looks bad, but it's actually, for the fish, you can see it's already clotting up all that blood. It's the same as us. If you cut your foot or something, you bleed a bit, particularly if you do it with a knife, you sit there going, oh. And then you look at it and go, oh, that's bad. These fish are all survived. I think we've got 100% in New South Wales so far.
Yeah, they survive the night. Again, you know, it's when you cut yourself and put your foot in the shower, it goes everywhere, so it looks a lot worse. So a little bit of blood, it's not too bad, depending on where it comes from, but more on that in a minute.
That's like alien probing for them, I reckon. Like getting dragged out of their well.
So we're in the process of working all this data up at the moment. So this is some preliminary results. Basically, these things are surviving pretty well. Like they're pretty hardy fish. We've had some that have had reasonably severe blood injuries and so on, and you know, they've swum off, and 6 months later they've shown up off New South Wales or something. So they're a pretty hardy fish to work in tuna. We also looked at capture stress with the blood, so that's more stress in terms of physiologically. So if you go for a long run, you're going to be more stressed than if you go for a short run. So looking at fight time, if there's anything else that's affecting that. At this stage, as you expect, along the fight time, it elevates some of the things that we're looking at in terms of stress in the blood. The interesting one is if they're getting chased by a seal, we're getting a really different adrenaline response. So they're basically having an adrenaline hit if they've got a seal chasing one wide.
That's a Tassie special.
Yeah. Did you ask them to see Victoria?
Yes, yes, have
So basically, if you intend to release a fish, you should feel it's pretty good about it. Look after it. Don't have to buy the gills. Some people with the smaller fish in particular can get right into the gills. Maybe in the gill plate a little bit, but try and avoid the gills if you can. Tag in the right spot. We've seen some really interesting photos of people tagging down on the lateral line. And it's tagged on Pedro. These blue dots are sort of March, and it's the colour warms up. We're going through to September. Basically, he's tagged off Pedro. He's gone right out here, and then he's come all the way back into the Tasman Peninsula, which most people say, oh, you know, he's swimming around the coast. No, he's gone for a massive wander before he's done that, and he's also then ended up going right up off New South Wales, but again, nowhere near where the wreck fishery is going to be encountering. This is basically its dive profile for the same fish as it's gone through time, so starting March through to September. The colour relates to the water temperature that they're experiencing, and this is the depth. So it starts off in the sort of 16 to 17 degree water off Tassie, moves up to some more water, changes its dive profile a bit, and some more water and so on. So basically you can see straight away you get one tag. It's a pretty interesting picture of what these fish are doing. Another example, so this one was tagged off Pedro again late in June, and he's gone west. So we always sort of thought the fish from Portland would end up coming around here and feeding our fishery. This guy, he's gone the other way. So he's basically going to hunt off Portland and Port Mac there in late July, and then spent time over in South Australia. We take it a bit further. So this is tag 128694, as I would know it. But this was actually a larger fish that was caught by an angler and allowed us to jump on and tag it. The guy that caught the fish said, can we name it after his son? So this fish is called Hunter, after his son. 162 kilo fish caught off the, 162 centimetre fish, so that's 70 kilos caught off the peninsula. You can see he's basically, so this is mid-May, tagged down here. He's gone up, he's run into this warmer water. You see that here? And he's gone, not ready for that. He's sort of come east along the subtropical convergence zone. Then he's moved back up. You can see his behaviour changes quite dramatically. So see this cool water, shallow dives. Then when he gets off Sydney into some of this warmer water, he's starting with these really deep dives down past 600 metres. And you notice he's diving below the thermocline, so into the cooler water. So again, as I said, it's the thermoregulation, the feeding thing, there'll be a whole range of things. But again, one tag, time capsule, yeah, it's pretty amazing. Alright, so that's basically where we're at with that project today. As I said, there's a lot of crossover with what we're planning to do for the swordfish. I thought I'd just give a really quick brief overview about swordfish around the world. These things are found everywhere, in every ocean, basically. No. So the swordfish are found all around the world. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're swimming from Europe to here or anything. There is some genetic work that's found that there's subpopulations, basically. So, and some of the tagging work, again, it's been done by SIRO, which confirmed this in other places around the world, is that basically the thought is that this population is different to the Mediterranean, which is different to this one, to that one, potentially four. So how do you manage that? These fish are swimming around the oceans, the broad ranges, encountering many countries and many different fleets. They use what are called regional fisheries management organisations. Here are the big five for tuna and billfish. So the one we're interested in is for the east coast of Australia. We do catch broadbill over here commercially and recreationally as well. Is the Western Central Pacific Fishery Commission. Basically, if we run around the world, just looking at these words, basically not overfished, and overfishing not occurring means that they're being managed well and they're being fished sustainably. And this is from the latest stock assessments for these species. It's looking good here. Note the asterisks on this one. So CSIRO put together a really neat one-page flyer with a lot of facts on what's been done on the broadbill to date. They're here to be handed out. You can all grab a copy. It talks about maximum age, how big they get, the tagging work that's been done to date. They have a point in there that for the stock assessment model in this area, if they change a parameter, it may slip into there's some overfishing going on, but that's still being worked up. Keep going, everything's looking pretty good. There's been a history of overfishing there, and it's overfished in the Mediterranean. Basically, if we consider it under the IUCN, we've got to decide whether things should be categorised as extinct or listed as extinct or endangered, whatever. This comes up under least concern, so they're in pretty good nick. That's reflected in their catch. This is the global catch for the swordfish, peaking at about 120,000 tonnes of fish, but it's across the entire globe. These light blue bars are the Western Central Pacific area, so that's that area where the fish that we're encountering off the east coast are in. And the black dots are basically Australian flag vessels, their catch of swordfish. There's a lot more info on the management, basically of the swordfish in this area, and also the eastern tuna and billfish fishery, which is in the Australian EZ, on the Siro flyer. And the Siro guys will be around in the breaks if you want to have a chat with them as well. Alright, so what can the science tell us to date? Basically, again, a lot of this is in the flyer, and this is stuff that Leo's obviously already known because he's applying it. We're basically going to be seeing the trophy fish off Tasmania. So the large females are the ones that will extend down into the cooler water. The smaller fish and the males tend to stay. Seafloor features. There's evidence that these guys like to hang around seafloor features, whether that's seamounts or particular canyons. And again, that kind of works where Leo's fishing down here and where the guys in St Helens have been fishing. It tends to be around features. Shelf break in Tassie, obviously, it's very close to the coast. That's a real advantage for us in the development of this fishery. And bait as well. So the CSIRO have done some work looking at diet preferences, and against the big fish tend to have preference for squid. I think that people that have been catching will probably agree that that's they would concur.
Come on, let's see it.
Later. Leo's on later.
So in terms of opportunities, just quickly, obviously, as we've heard a couple of times, tourism, we're looking at large trophy fish. It's potentially seasonal, but it's a similar season or an overlapping season with the bluefin. So, at the moment we've got plenty of people who are bringing boats over from the mainland. They can potentially use a reason for them to leave them here longer, fly in more often. They've got a couple of species to choose from. It's focused on regional communities, obviously, which is important. It's unique. It's an emerging recreational fishery of this potential calibre. I think it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and that's unique in the way that you think about management. I think Brett's got some ideas about that, and also that you can engage really early with it. That's the next point, engagement. Again, the rep fishing community is taking initiative to engage with science and management at an early stage. It was a really positive thing with the bluefin. Here's a real fish fishery where you can potentially do it again. So the primary research questions, again, this is sort of reflecting back to what we showed with the bluefin. Post-release survival of swordfish. There's evidence both ways, basically. There's a study done in Florida with a small sample of juvenile swordfish, and the mortality was quite high, it's about 40%. The commercial guys are also suggesting that these things don't survive particularly well. That's not necessarily a problem. It just changes the way you address the fishery. So you need to think about icing up, making sure you've got the right year. It might be more of a landing fishery, but you have to think about that, and there's options for management. They might survive well. That's the question. Is there anything we can do to improve the survival rates? Are the swordfish adjacent to Tasman resident? So again, that's a thing that are hanging around in these canyons, or migrants. It would make sense that they're large females, that they're going to be going back up the coast to spawn. The commercial guys I was talking to them, they sort of said, well, there are areas of New South Wales where they've been fished out of particular seamounts. So that has big implications to how you manage this fishery down here. Obviously, if you're going to fish it out quite quickly, you want to be pretty careful. But if it's an annual migration, it's going to be going for as long as it needs. So basically, what we're planning to do is something very similar to what we did with the bluefin. Put some satellite tags in it, will give us the information on.
Massive role for us, and you're doing a bit putting back into the fishery that we sort of hopefully will develop. Speechless, I like that.
We're going to shoot into question time very shortly. Before we do, we're going to introduce the raffle now.
Just before we do that, you have got some guys down the back, and if they're struggling here, I can see 5 seats here, 5 seats there. So certainly don't stand up the back there and worry about not hearing. You've got all the wall space down here as well. So by all means come forward. Thanks guys, that makes good sense. There's seats here, your feet must be getting quite sore at the minute. We've got plenty of time to go yet. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seats here. There you go.
Before we get into the raffle, Brett Cleary just wants a couple of words, ladies and gentlemen. Brett Cleary for the GFAA.
Yeah, thanks, Moz. Just leading on from what Sean said. It's a bit hard for everyone to hear, so this way. Yeah, thanks, everyone. Just leading on from what Sean said, a lot of the things that Sean was talking about there, he was talking about management. You keep hearing about fisheries management. One of the things, and I just want to make sure that people understand these are my thoughts and perhaps not necessarily that of the rest of the people here tonight. But I want you to start thinking about management. Fisheries management in Australia historically has been about commercial fisheries. It's not about recreational fisheries. We bring in management for that fishery. We have the opportunity here with this fishery to bring in and to sort of like have a pilot study for recreational management. And as this fishery starts to develop, I think you'll find that from perhaps GFAA or Tarfish or just we'll be putting ideas out there to get some feedback about how you think the fishery should be managed. If you consider the opportunity here, I'll give you an example of in the Northern Territory, about 90% of the barramundi, about 70% of the barramundi that are caught in the Northern Territory are caught by tourists. 90% of those fish are put back into the water. They're tagged and released or just released. That's an amazing figure. Which is, in Tasmania, or all around Australia at the moment, there's no way of understanding how much fishing effort is put in by the recreational sector. If you had a licence, for argument's sake, which is a terrible word, no one wants it, I'm not suggesting that, at least you have a database that you can talk to people and find out what the fishing effort is. In this particular fishery, it may be some form of just recording the effort, recording the tagging, so we can get an understanding of how many fish are being encountered, and we can actually start to take that information back to the managers and look at resource sharing between the recreational sector and the commercial sector. And as soon as we start to talk about resource sharing, we'll have a greater understanding of the importance of these fish to the recreational sector, and in turn I think we'll get a greater share of the resource. So first of all, what we're doing here tonight is talking about protecting it, so understanding the fish, understanding about post-release survival, making sure if we're going to release them, we're releasing them in a healthy way. But also we have this great opportunity to start to look at management from the recreational perspective. So as this develops, I think you'll start to see some information coming back. I want you to be involved and get the community involved in how we can manage this, because this could be a really good case study for how we manage other species like SBT and all of the recreational species in Australia. So from our perspective, it's really exciting, and there's some really great opportunities.
If I'm wrong here, I'm going to try and lead into the way this raffle's going to work. Basically, we need to raise $30,000. Is that the figure? 10 satellite tags at $3,000 each. Then we're going to deploy them in Tasmania on swordfish. We can then discover whether these fish are moving on or hanging out down here having a party. So the raffle aim here tonight with some prizes, which Hoots will go through in a second. We can buy some tickets, and that will all go towards funding some tags. The more money we get, the more tags we get, the more Sean gets to go fishing without.
And we're not looking, obviously, we're not looking to raise the $30,000 here tonight or the raffle in its own right, but it's the impetus to start showing those people that need to sort of dive into their pockets on a level a little bit greater than us recreational fishermen, that we're showing some impetuous to get that started. So third prize in the raffle, third. How many prizes have we got, Mark? 6. What's this one? Oh, Tommy, we've got a Plano. The science is done, things are going to get loose. So we've got the Plano tackle box, that's 6 prize, fantastic. That's a nice thing. You can talk about that while I go and get
It's valued at about $279, ladies and gentlemen. You can find these at Spot On Tackle Shop in town and any other tackle shop in Hobart. Tackle One and have them aboard as well, but make sure you get along, get a Plano product, it's a good thing.
So we've
Go
got
where
that
six.
where? Lovely work. And what's fifth, sorry? Oh, lovely work, spot on. Steve Bax, I think, is in the house, and also who have you got? Special guest, Steve? Where's Steve? Alex is there. Oh, yes. Stand up, Steve. Everyone knows Steve from Spot On. Don't be scared, champ.
He is standing up.
And we've also got, was it the owner, general manager? What was it? Sorry, Steve?
General Manager of Spot On from Adelaide.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. So that's awesome. So they put together those vouchers. What? What's the voucher worth, sorry? $250. So that's fifth. So that leaves me with fourth.
Correct.
Where's Mark? Moving on. Not moving, Mark. So we've got fourth.
Right, fourth prize is the dial at
Lovely work. I think you've all probably seen and drilled over these. Have a look at touch that like that. So that's a nice thing.
That's a quality product value there. I guesstimate Steve probably helped me out here about $1,000 more. Especially with the wild tip here. I'd like to get myself an electric rod that's got that technology going on. That's wild. Thank you very much for the dial and Spot On and the fishing connection.
Over to you, Mark. Lovely work. Here it is here. It's a beautiful item. So you've got a great handle on these. It's got the roller tip. That's a very nice tip.
Tell you what, Kelly, that is a nice bit of gear, isn't it? It is a 50, not a wide, just a 50, but you can hang a fair bit of line off that, especially when you start playing with jack line and things like that, and braid. So you can take those big broadies down deep and obviously put yourself through a little bit of pain. Good stuff. You look after me? Yeah, no, I'm going to we've heard about you. And first place. Second.
Second. This is the big girl in the house tonight, the 70 VS Starbucks. So if you're looking to chase, I suppose broadies on mono, that's probably the minimum size you go for.
700 metres out you turn.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay, that's the Penn International outfit there, the International 70 VS. Quality bit of gear, valued at over $1,000 retail. The rod comes in at about $450, so we're looking at close to $1,500 worth of kit there.
We've got some lines for that too, Adrian.
Got some lines for that as well, tidy work. So as Luke said, if you're chasing on mono, which is if you want to get a record, pretty well it's got to be on mono. So that's the sort of thing you want to rig up. Even a wide in that, a 70 or an 80 wide, which I think is one of the names that Ashley Hallis possession here earlier tonight as well. So that's second place, ladies and gentlemen, in our raffle. Then we have 3 broadbills here in first place. No? All right.
No, hang on, no one can see this over here. This is the big one, first prize. This is a day's fishing. And I do apologise for those of you live streaming at the poor quality of the live stream, but anyway, have a look at that. We'll do better next time. So, Adrian.
That's day's fishing on the beautiful vessel Absolute, by Captain Brett Cleary's beautiful machine. It is the Riviera 85. And so what happens here is you can take along about 35 of your friends for this day. And Brett's putting on all the food, all the booze, and a couple of nights accommodation down the peninsula.
And to date, he's yet to Bob Clifford the thing, so he should be safe.
Now, I noticed John Edwards, president of the Student Club of Tasmania, rolled in there with another little pod there. Is that a prize to go in the raffle too, John?
Well, we're a little bit hamstrung by the galleries there, so we're going to do something else with the pod. Lovely.
That's a safety pod, and that's donated by Jordan from the Tuna Club of Tasmania. It's the top stuff. Good to go aboard the boat. All your safety gear goes in there.
I'm taking it next time we go to Petra and get a bit of bottom.
Your days of bodyboard are way over.
I told you
You'll be more like a boy out there somewhere. Oh, shark line, don't do that.
No, I certainly.
Okay, so we're going to move into a couple of quick questions before we head into our interlude. We've got 10 minutes of questions if you want to throw them at Alistair, Sean.
These questions
Leo
will be
later.
basically about the science, okay, and the questions about the catching will be after the interlude. And if you're thinking about not asking any questions because you're a bit scared, We've got some giveaways for the questions.
The giveaways are.
Some mate is mates of DVDs.
Oh,
Who is it? Alan Blash.
Alan. It's Alan. Where's Alan?
Yeah, so let's have some questions about the signs, about what we're trying to do here tonight in the hall.
Yeah. Video, coach on it.
Just
See how it works with that prize.
yeah, just a question regarding the broadbill that was brought out with this tag. What happened to that fish?
Okay, just say, back didn't hear it there. There was one broadbill tag late in the season there down Deagon Hawk Neck, and unfortunately didn't survive. Sean will run us through what happened there.
That's basically the short of it, yeah. So, it was a guy from Victoria had come over, caught the fish, offered it up for tagging. He was tossing up whether it landed or not. It was his first big fish, first broadbill. Decided to tag it. We sort of assessed it as it was alongside the boat. It had pretty good colour. It was deep hooked. We don't know how deep hooked. It was still tailing pretty well in its colour. So we thought, we tossed it up and we thought, no, we'll have a crack at it because that's part of the question. Are they going to survive? And yeah, basically tailed off. It basically went to the bottom, sat at 600 metres, which is basically what the seafloor was, and then the tags are basically designed to come up if they sit at a constant depth for a preset time. In this case, it was 2 days. The tag releases from the fish and comes up and transmits its data. So yeah, unfortunately that one didn't survive, but so that's part of the question. So but one fish doesn't answer the question.
Right, we've got a gentleman over the back there first, in the blue.
Yeah, if you guys are going to invest in these tags, wouldn't you be better off fishing for them at night when they're up on top feeding and rather than dragging them up from the bottom, just running the risk of pulling them up and putting a tag in? Wouldn't you be better off fishing for them at night when they're up top feeding? Put them under less stress?
First off on that point, you started with, if you guys.
Oh, well, whoever, us guys?
Yeah, it's us.
All right.
Can I just jump in and say, when you hook them in 700 metres, they're on the top within about 5 minutes, 9 times out of 10.
They're coming straight
The first
up.
thing they do is go straight to the top, and you get all your line back in there like a year from the boat half the time, and then they realise the hook doesn't go so fast. If you hook them on the surface during the night, half the time they go mental and go straight to the bottom anyway.
So at least they're pressurising them.
No, they don't swim later, the pressure doesn't affect them. So I haven't caught one at night, but the guys we've chatted to that caught a lot at night, New Zealand reckon they often go harder at night because they're more alert, because they're in warmer water on the surface. When they come up from the colder water at the daytime, often they're a bit dopier. Sometimes you've got half a crack to get them within sort of 30 minutes. So it's probably 6 to 1 half a dozen guys.
But that's what we want to learn. That's part of the thing. We want to learn that from up.
And I think Sean knows something about that.
Yeah, so I think the commercial fishery, obviously they catch a lot of these fish, so they see a lot of them on the line, and they can be in the water for a long time on the line, like soaking, or they might hook up just before they bring it up. They do see signs of barotrawl from the fish, where, as you said, and they'll often float the broadbill. So it's going to be a case by case thing. I think if we had the money, it'd be great to test both the day and the night fishery. I think the question here is more related to the day fishery, because that's what we're seeing develop in Tassie. It's the one that's probably going to draw the crowds, because most people are going to be more keen to go out. So that's probably the one we'll test. As I said, this fish that we tagged have no signs of barotrawl or anything that would suggest that the fact that it come up from the depth was a problem. So.
Right on. Sorry, Camo up next there. Greg, come here next. Camo.
Yeah, I've been reading up on the stuff and I saw something, I spoke to Leo about it, with the handling of the fish, if you are going to tag alongside, like something about bare hands can be bad for them when you touch them. Is that actually is that a fact or is that a fallacy sort of thing?
To be honest with you, I asked Julian Pepperell the same thing with his experience with the billfish, because someone had mentioned that to me before. He didn't seem to think that was an issue. Like there are sensors and so on in the bill, but he didn't seem to think. Obviously, they've done a lot of tagging with marlin and so on as billfish, and it hasn't been a problem. I don't know, maybe you guys have any info on.
I don't think you can compare. Sorry.
Sorry, this is Karen Evans from the CSIRO. So.
I don't think you can quite compare a marlin to a swordfish. I mean, anyone who's seen a swordfish and marlin knows that the bill's quite different. It's structured quite differently. But I don't think anyone's really looked into just whether handling the sword itself is detrimental to the fish or not. I don't think anyone's really looked at that. So it's a bit of a question that we've just not done. My personal view is when you're handling these animals, because you you're trying to give them the best chance to go away from the boat with a tag, you're wanting to take as much care as possible. So in our case, when we tag, we always use gloves. We replace the gloves between individual fish to make sure that we're not infecting fish from between fish, and we make sure that that all of our practices are the best that we can give to the animal to make sure that when we're tagging animals, they've got the best chance of survival.
And that's probably one of the big differences with what we're doing as well, is we're replicating how we're handling the red fishery. Because that's what the question we want to know is, are they going to survive if the red fisher picks it up or holds it alongside the boat or whatever it is. We can look into it more. There's been some work done in New Zealand where they did some tagging, and some in Florida, where, and these guys obviously, so we can look at, trying to investigate if there's any links to that.
Mythbusters.
Yeah, basically.
Is it plausible? Okay, Reg Turner from Mains Marine. Reg?
The data that you collect from the satellite tags, will that data be able to be viewed live, or is that going to be closely guarded by like the tracking and the depths and so forth?
No, that's a really good question. So basically, these things aren't GPS tags. They only transmit their data once they come off the fish. For those shows we said the sharks and so on, it's where they come up and fin, and the antenna on the tag goes to the surface for long enough to get a position. But these things, the way we actually work out the tracks is using light information, so the tag records the light, and basically there's some heavy maths involved. Basically, depending on dawn and dusk time, it can give you a rough approximation of where you are on the planet. Then you use the temperature, and you relate that to the sea surface temperature charts, and you start to hone in for each point, saying that we're 800 metres, we're obviously on the shell, so we're working that in, and it's basically an estimation step. So for these fish in particular, no, it's not a real-time reporting. And marlin's another one again, because they've come up and fin for a bit, so sometimes you can get the odd hit where you can start to trap them. But tunas and ballbill obviously.
Any other questions?
How long do the tags stay in the fish?
It's basically a trade-off on the battery life in the tag. So you can have them stay for quite a short period of time. You get very high resolution data, so it might report to you every few seconds. Or you can put them on for a longer period, you have to reduce the amount of sample time. So when it comes to the tag pops off, it lasts about 2 weeks transmitting data, and then we'll let out. So again, it comes down to the broader management questions. Again, Soro sheet will help sort of get a big picture about the Western South Pacific fishery and the Eastern Trinity, the British fishery, where this fish is made. Hasn't been important in terms of that before. I think some of the drop lines probably pick them up. That's bycatch. Will the bites in the fish still good? I don't know. If I was to look at the evidence, I would say the vast majority of these sort of fish are off the river. It's one of the central fisheries that go across the coast of the coast. Commercial fisheries also generally target big eye, swordfish. It's almost a bycatch because it's a lower value, but it's a target for the profile. Every now and then it's like bycatch, see them moving about. I don't think the fishery extends this far.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're about ready. Still a couple of seats at the party, people are trying to move around, otherwise standing up is just
I know the fishery they would, so it might be some bycatch. I think where the fishery is based, I suggest it's just not going to be viable for them to come down and get set up a commercial fishery because they're not going to have species.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Tasmanian Anglers Broadbill Initiative Info Evening. Right, time for one more question for Sean, then we're going to have a break, come back and get Leo, tell us how to catch them. Sorry, at the back here.
When you've got these tags in, you've obviously got some sort of idea of the time frame to get the 10 tags in the fish.
First of all, welcome
When you've got
to
the
the
information
Tasmanian
from those tags, is that going to be readily available to recreational fishermen?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the plan. I think that's one of the best things about this engagement we've done with bluefin. We've been trying to promote sort of putting out bits of the results. Obviously we can't put out the whole picture until it's finished, we're just starting to wrap it up. But it's giving us the access to you guys, because all this stuff's available. There's plenty of reports that the CSIRO have done, there's plenty of reports around the world that are available. It's just that access for you guys seems to be one of the issues. So all the bluefin stuff will be wrapped up at the end of this year, there'll be a report written, that will all become available. As I said, we did this work on the catch of all these species that are of interest. I don't know how many people have read this, but it's all been promoted around various sites, but no one seems to pick up on it as much as perhaps they should. And it'd be interesting to try and work out where that's breaking down. Events like this are great, I can stand up and go, these things are available, if you want to read them, they're out there.